Glancing back at the plane, it looked strangely out of scale, like a model aircraft left on an overgrown lawn. From behind the bushes that skirted the perimeter of the forest, he could see the reflection of the afternoon sun glinting on a piece of metal. "That's it," he said, racing to the clump of bushes that were hiding the piece of aircraft. Just a few paces from the scene, he stopped dead in his tracks. Lindsay waited patiently for David's return. The sun was low in the afternoon sky, shining softly into the cargo bay and bathing her in a warm and restful glow. She was sitting at the edge of the exit, leaning back on her elbows and swinging her legs over the edge of the doorway. Her head was raised towards the sun, her eyes closed as she enjoyed what was left of the heat before the sun set behind the trees. There were so many trees. They surrounded the clearing that had offered a refuge to the stricken aircraft. This place seemed like paradise. She was completely unaware that she was in danger. But the last thing she would remember of this life was not the sun that had offered comfort and warmth, or even the aircraft that she hung her legs out of as it gave shelter. What Lindsay would remember last was the shearing pain and blistering heat that suddenly shot through her left leg, then the panic as she was pulled from the cargo bay with such force that she had no time to react. She hit the ground hard. Unprepared for the fall, she had not raised her arms to protect her face, and her nose took the full impact. It shattered instantly. She was dazed, her eyes watered, and she felt copious amounts of blood oozing down her face. She tasted the blood in the back of her throat, coughing and gasping for breath. She scrambled along the grassy ground, trying to get up and flee, but then came the weight. A huge weight on her back, pinning her down, restricting her breathing, forcing her face down into the long, thick moss. The painful leg was throbbing, radiating discomfort out to the rest of her body. She was shaking, her heart racing, sweat streaming out of every pore of her body. She felt the warm sensation of urine as her bladder emptied. Lindsay turned her eyes as far as their sockets would allow, but she couldn't see what had attacked her. She could feel its breath, a warm, putrid breath, coming in waves on the back of her head. She tried to call for help, but all she could manage was a whimper. Her mouth curled uncontrollably in the corners, and tears streaked down her face. "Please, please," she tried to beg. She positioned her hands flat at shoulder level and mustered all her remaining strength. She pushed up against the weight that was holding her down, but she couldn't budge it. Her arms collapsed beside her and she lay limp. The coarse breathing behind her became a growl, a low, grumbling sound she'd never heard before. And she could feel the heat of the foul breath on the back of her neck. Suddenly, everything went black, and her pain vanished.